On the surface, K-pop Demon Hunters looks like a flashy, stylish fantasy about idols, demons, and supernatural battles, but underneath all that neon energy, there's something much deeper going on. In this video, I will break down 5 major ways K-pop Demon Hunters is deeply rooted in Korean mythology and folklore, and why that matters. First, let's start with the Saja boys. The name itself is already a huge clue. The word Saja literally means lion, which is why you may have noticed that a lion's face features as the logo of the boy band in the movie. However, in Korean folklore, Yeoseung Saja are the grim reaper figures who escort souls to the afterlife. They are not just random spooky characters like Aradeet, they are deeply tied to death, judgment, and the boundary between the living and the dead. Just like the Saja boys, the Yeoseung Saja carry souls from the physical world to the underworld. So when you see the Saja boys in the movie, the connection is not accidental. Their presence taps into that same eerie energy of death, fate, and spiritual crossing. Like, even if the film gives them a cool, stylized, idol-like appearance, the folklore roots are still there underneath in the way they work for Guima, to collect souls from the physical world. Yeoseung Saja is traditionally depicted as an imposing figure dressed entirely in black, adorned with a hanbok with a wide-brimmed black hat known as a gat, adding to their authoritative presence. The attire of the Saja boys in the song Your Idol is more than a subtle hint of this connection. Visually, they work because they feel both attractive and dangerous, which is exactly what makes the folklore reference so effective. Second, next we have Guima, the demon king figure in the movie. In Korean folklore, King Yeomna is the ruler associated with the afterlife and judgment of souls. He is the most powerful underworld ruler and divine judge, who is depicted seated on his infernal throne. Now, Guima is not a one-to-one copy of King Yeomna, but the idea of a sovereign figure ruling over spirits, punishment, and the afterlife is very familiar within Korean mythic thinking. That's why Guima feels bigger than a simple monster villain. He feels like a cosmic authority, a dark force with a throne who pulls souls from the physical world to rule over them in the underworld. Guima, literally a play on magui, meaning evil, is driven by ego, power, and chaos. He takes, he dominates, he destroys in his constant blaze of raging fire. While King Yeomna exists for balance, he governs the souls to maintain order, deciding their fate after they have left the physical world. So instead of reading him as just a generic demon, it helps to see him as part of a much older tradition of underworld power and spiritual hierarchy, albeit a more chaotic one. Third, now here's something you might not expect. The demons working for Guima might actually have more in common with Dokkaebi than you think. At first glance, they feel completely different. Guima's army is dark, dangerous, and destructive, but look closer and the similarities start to show. Both Dokkaebi and these demons are supernatural beings that interact directly with humans. They don't stay hidden. They engage, they interfere, and they disrupt human life. They also share that playful unpredictability. In folklore, Dokkaebi love confusing people, appearing out of nowhere, shape-shifting, and turning ordinary moments into chaos. And in the film, Guima's demons do something very similar, just with a darker twist. They manipulate, deceive, and create disorder in ways that feel strangely familiar. There's also the visual language. Dokkaebi are often depicted with exaggerated features, wild expressions, even clubs or supernatural tools, and the movie's demons, they carry that same larger-than-life, almost theatrical energy. They're not subtle spirits. They're bold, expressive, and impossible to ignore. But here's the most interesting overlap. Both exist in that space between fear and fascination. Dokkaebi can scare you, or reward you. You never quite know. And that same unpredictability is what makes Guima's demons feel so compelling on screen. So while the movie makes them darker and more dangerous, the DNA of Dokkaebi might still be hiding in plain sight. Fourth, one of the most visually obvious folklore links is Hojakdo, the traditional tiger and magpie folk painting. This is a major part of Korean Minhwa, or people's art. In Hojakdo, the tiger is often drawn in a funny, slightly clumsy or exaggerated way, while the magpie is sharp, clever, and full of attitude. That contrast creates humor, symbolism, and social commentary all at once. Often, the tiger represents corrupt politicians, while the magpie that sits above the tiger represents the common people who smirk and mock the tiger. In the movie, undoubtedly, Derpy the tiger and Sussie the magpie stole the hearts of the audience with their subtle humor, much like the intended effect of a Hojakdo. The information dropped by Jinu, where he stated that the hat worn by Sussie is actually a hat that he had made for Derpy, but the bird steals the hat and wears it, is the best example of that relationship. So in the movie, Derpy and Sussie, they are not just aesthetic additions, they tap into a long Korean tradition in which animals represent power, wit, mockery, and cultural identity. That's what makes it so cool. The film is not copying folklore literally, it's remixing it into something playful and modern. Fifth, finally, we have the Honmoon and the whole idea of protective spiritual boundaries. This connects strongly to traditional Korean shamanic rituals in which shamans performed rites to protect homes, communities, and individuals from harmful spirits. In that sense, the Honmoon feels like more than just a magical barrier. It echoes the real spiritual logic of ritualistic protection, a sacred line between safety and chaos, between the human world and the spiritual world, which the Huntrix have been trying to protect over the centuries, as mentioned in the movie. That makes the film's magic feel culturally grounded. It isn't just fantasy for fantasy's sake. It feels inspired by a worldview where spiritual protection, ritual action, and unseen forces are deeply real. Honestly, this is exactly what I find so fascinating about mythology and folklore. And that's what I love exploring myths and legends from across the world in my channel. When you start connecting the dots between K-pop Demon Hunters and real Korean folklore, you realize these aren't just random fantasy elements. They're rooted in stories that people once truly believed in, feared, and even respected. Figures like Dokkaebi or spirits like Yeomna weren't just tales, they were part of how people made sense of the unknown. No matter the culture, these stories revealed so much about human fears, values, and imagination. And what's even more incredible is how they don't just stay in the past, they evolve. Movies like K-pop Demon Hunters take these ancient ideas and reimagine them for today, turning old beliefs into something modern, visual, and relatable, while still keeping their essence alive. So in a way, these stories never really disappear. They just find new ways to be told. If you find myths and legends across the world fascinating, like I do, Follow my channel so I can bring them to you.